headquarters. I mean, you are transmitting from polling units to local government headquarters. It's also going to the national headquarters.
Simultaneously.
Simultaneously. And then the local government headquarters would do their own calculations and transmit to state headquarters. And then subsequently, that by now we would have known who won these elections.
Okay, Prof, one of the things that will help, this process is to be sure that it's a seamless, peaceful, safe, and generally adjudged free and fair election across board. But we've been having some comments from diplomats, like an American diplomat who was saying something about our process. What's your take on that?
Well, I'm revolted at this holier-than-thou do-gooders from abroad who want to know us more than we know ourselves. They might say they're acting in the public interest. Who gave them that authority? I feel scandalized as an international lawyer. We know the meaning of sovereignty. We know the meaning of non-interference in the domestic affairs of states. These are things that form part and parcel of the UN Charter. Okay? So except the conduct of elections will lead to an international incident like between states, we have the right to go to heaven the way we want. But we have to clean up our own act so that we don't allow, in fact, I blame journalists largely in this country. They go to ask these diplomats, what do you think about the elections? A good diplomat should say no comment. But here, they will now go on and on giving us tutorial lessons.
But that doesn't mean that doesn't mean they're bad.
I'm saying that as an international lawyer, I'm not talking as an ordinary Nigerian. I studied international law in 3 different countries, so I know what I'm talking about. So it's unbecoming of a diplomat to be passing comments on the domestic affairs of his host state. And Nigeria, the government ought to have called them to order, like the Minister of Foreign Affairs did, but you invite the guilty ones for a dressing down at an unholy hour in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Shake your fist and warn him, cease and desist, failing which we invoke Article 9 of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. We declare you persona non grata, give you 24 hours to go back home because you are in flagrant breach of protocol.
That's quite strange for a lot of people in this country because they've never heard about that and will never even think that something like that can even happen.
Well, ignorance is very expensive. This is what I taught for over 40 years in the universities, international law. And they are some of my former students, they are very highly placed. I mentioned just one, who was Deputy Palm Rep in the UN. He's a frequent participant on your programs. He was my student. He knows all these things. Many of our diplomats who went to school, they are properly educated on diplomatic niceties. Okay, if you want to pull the glove off, then you tell them where to get off. Because the diplomat is a representative, is to report what he sees, what he hears, to his home government, not to tell citizens or nationals of his host state how to conduct their affairs. So that sanction exists. I've told you, persona non grata. You are no longer wanted here because you don't respect us. Well, I know Nigerians have never done it.
Mr. Iguabor, you seem to want to weigh in.
No, Prof, you have said 2 things here. I agree with you that international observers, especially diplomats, should shy away from commentaries. But the truth of the matter is that if Africa got it right, there will be no need for observers in the first place. I mean, imagine an elections in Zimbabwe without international observers. They will run opposition out of town. So the the frequency, the tendency to accept the observer status in African elections as checkmates is something everybody has come to accept. And yes, but making comments and so on and so forth, I think that basically what they are supposed to do is report back to their home government.
But the angle of it, sorry,
yes.
Mr. Iguabor, add this to the conversation. The angle of it is that, you know, some of these comments are encouraged or invited. These individuals are invited and encouraged to make comments by the political class.
Statutorily, INEC must invite the international observers representing the international community to come and see how fair, free the process is. And if you don't do that, then it will not be credible. I mean, that is what we have come to agree. ECOWAS has its own observers, AU has its own observers, and then it is something that has become a norm.
If it were an electronic process, and Nigerians see it and it's transparent, everybody, I mean, largely judges it to be credible, will the invitation or otherwise of foreign observers, of what use would it be?
It will still be quite necessary to have observers, because observers are not monitoring the transmission of results. They are monitoring the conduct of elections. Look at the role soldiers have played in this election, allegedly. If it turns out to be true, then we still have quite a long way to go. The reports reaching us from Rivers State are very discouraging. I mean, for soldiers to intervene directly in the process, confiscate ballot boxes, cut them away to only God knows where. I think there are allegations, but it's gaining ground.
It could also be locals in maybe military uniform or military
then
fatigue.
It is
somebody needs to investigate and tell us what
yes,
really
if that were the case, soldiers should apprehend those who are impersonating them. That's the way I see it.
Well, again, I would like, you know, Professor Oyebode to probably weigh in on this as well. The fact that political class, even in the run-up to the elections, you know, continue to call on the international community, call on this government, call on that government to guide our political process. It gives room for concern, don't you think?
Well, I call it the Caliban syndrome. Those of you who read Tempest will know that we seem to accept, almost in a Pavlovian sense, the white father knows best mentality, the syndrome, that you have to beg Western countries to come to your aid. I distinguish between diplomats and observers. I was talking about diplomats who are pontifically making statements about Nigeria. It's out of sync with what we expect from them. Observers, they're like tourists. I was an observer. We went to the equivalent of INEC in Antananarivo, and the president of the commission told us that he had been in Abuja. I'm sure he must be here now. Those are friends of the country who want to ensure that everything goes on as planned. But to now invoke the foreigner to read the Riot Act to Nigeria, like what a U.S. congressman reportedly said, that we should be called to order, or those threatening us with the Venezuela example, that's outrageous. I feel scandalized as a Nigerian for somebody to say, look, the soldiers should not obey their commander-in-chief. It's treasonable. You're asking for mutiny, the sort of thing Donald Trump was saying to the soldiers in Venezuela. Every sovereign country should be in charge of its affairs. If there's any act of malfeasance or whatever that leads to breakdown of law and order, then the Security Council, the United Nations, can set up the process of investigating and curtailing that threat to international peace and security. You see, the UN has a role to maintain international peace and security, but the UN must recognize and respect the rights of its constituent members. Otherwise, you end up with a situation where a group of countries who claim now to know better than the rest of the world will be telling people what to do. That is what I'm against.
Last time, 4 years ago, you raised a similar matter when John Kerry was here. The way, I think at that time, opposition parties also had some meetings, and you said, no, this shouldn't be the case. Certain things, there should be a line. But again, you're raising it now consistently. But you know, politicians themselves, who at that time appeared not to have an issue with it, if they raise those kind of matters now, what moral grounds will they stand on to raise it?
Well, precedent, I understand, should be followed. But then in law, we talk of distinguishing cases. Certain issues that do not, as lawyers would say, fall on all fours with what happened previously. I think we all agree that we are steadily growing in terms of democracy, the coming of age. There are certain things which we will have accepted or permitted 4 years ago that we will frown against now. As Mr. Iguabor said, and I agree with him, we should move towards technology, do away with paperwork, too much paperwork. And he said it gives room for all manner of manipulations. I don't know, we used to vote with ballot papers, but my good friend Humphrey Nwosu mentioned on your program that there was option A4. Okay, you just line up. It's a little bit backward. It looks antediluvian. But to just line, and they will count you 1, 2, 3. We've gone out of that. We can't say because it happened in 1993.
They still use it for direct system, the ballot primaries.
It was ugly. Those direct primaries that we saw were not a good edifice, a good spectacle. I think we're in 2019. This is the 21st century. And the way of the world is to go along with technology. As I said, we all bandy cell phones, your tablet. Of course, there are people who are not really savvy, technologically speaking. Then we have to increase the voter education, the use of tablets, the use of phones, and then where they don't have, the phones are made available to voters so that they can vote. So you don't see this paper, you don't see ballot boxes, nothing to catch, nothing to steal. And then, as we all know, the results go to the servers, the servers of the INEC. Yeah. And then, so it's not rocket science.
Besides, Mr. Iguabor, we could even dualize the process. You could have the electronic version as well as have perhaps the manual to keep those records such that almost working towards a foolproof, even though nothing can be foolproof.
Yes, that would be something in the works. You know, like I'm saying now, if INEC made its officials realize that they already have results at all the polling units in the country. Some of the things going on now, some of the things going on now will not go on. Because every polling...
Don't they know that?
No, every polling unit has results signed by each of the party agents present.
Supposedly. That's the way it should be.
Present, because where I voted, all the party agents had their tags. And then it's filled into a particular form and pasted on the wall.
EC60E, I think.
There are too many EC.
I know.
That's the people's results.
Presented in Central State.
You know, Mr. Iguabor, how many forms are in this process?
I have no idea. And I'm saying, Prof said it, let's do away with paperwork. Let too many papers.
You know, in the same
and then
vein,
they snatch one paper, it stalls the process.
In the same vein, you know, you talked about the election management bodies, you know, all over Nigeria and all of that, but, you know, the electoral process, you know, seems quite a huge responsibility on its own. Any hope of unbundling? Because that's another word that's come out, you know, as a result of this humongous logistics that this EMB has to go through. What do we need to do to unbundle the process?
It will have to come in the form of amending the law. True. What INEC is doing now, like I said, is similar to how we run our Federal Republic of Nigeria, where the federal government has the wallet, and then every governor, all local governments have to depend on that wallet for existence. We cannot do things like that anymore. Ghana is making progress because not only have they maintained their regions, they have fortified the laws with regards to how those regions are funded. So for me, it's INEC. I think we should actually unbundle INEC. Get a body to face conduct of elections. Get another body to face registration. Get some other bodies to, you know, just spread it out like that. So if you bribe one man, you haven't bribed everybody.
It does seem to suggest that some responses is coming, activity from the Abuja Coalition Center of INEC, that's the National Coalition Center. It seems to suggest from the distance what we can see that Usaze Uzi
we can listen into it.
Let's listen to it.